Okay, day one of free agency um, is over. Vikings moves news. This was much more of like a you know I think the headlines are probably the guys who left today. But I'll start with the guys that we kept. We uh, we did re-sign Byron Murphy Jr. Uh, and this was a big contract. This was like a 20 million a year type of thing. So this is a you know you know obviously they really wanted him. They really wanted to keep him. So that's a big chunk here of that cap space that they had um, available. So so he's back in the mix. Um, um, and the real big news is, of course, we also kept Ryan Wright, the punter. um, so those are the two guys that we kept. Um, Outside free agents, we signed Isaiah Rodgers, cornerback from the Eagles. Um, Kind of a modest type of deal, but he'll probably, I mean, I'm sure he'll be, at least penciled in as a starter. And we signed some safety named Bubba Bolden. I'd never heard the name before. I wouldn't know him from Bubba Gump. Um, I think he might be more of like a special teams guy. That's just a very minor move. And then you know the, the the one signing that we did make that could be kind of a big deal is we signed Ryan Kelly, center from the Colts, um, and you know I think there had probably been some talk about maybe signing a center. I think guard has been more talked about as the issue, but of course, um, you know, so Ryan Kelly is the new starting center. That's definitive. But now that also raises the question of Garrett Bradbury. What's going to happen there? You know, I think Bradbury has hung around a lot longer than some people. Probably most people thought he would because he's been okay. Like I think if we had really good guard play over the last few years, I think you could live with kind of an average center, mediocre type of center. And maybe it's a little too harsh on Bradbury. Obviously, he was a first round pick, so you would want him to be like, you know, uh, an all pro level player. He's never been that. But now the question is, what are we going to do with him? Are they going to release him, trade him? You know, some talk about moving him to guard. I don't really see that. Um, plus he's played center. Every game in the pros. Like this isn't like you know you're gonna move someone after a year. Like this would be what is like seventh year or something coming up. So I don't think that's going to happen. So I think Garrett Bradbury is probably either a trade or a release situation. But maybe you can trade him, get a draft pick or two. Um, we do have Jonathan Allen in for the visit. He's a defensive tackle from Washington. That would be a big signing. That would be another good signing for the trenches. Um, you know, the purple smoke has not risen from TCO, so I don't know if we signed him, but there's a good chance I would think that we'll sign him. And then there's some other guys that are still being talked about. Obviously, both guys to bring back and guys to outside free agents. I won't get into it, but I mean, people who are all about the cap space, like, oh, we got all this cap space in the world. About half of that cap space is already gone, just with the few guys that they signed today. It's like this stuff doesn't doesn't last forever. So you're gonna have to deal with the reality that they're gonna have a limited budget. Now there's always moves they can make to kind of work on clearing even more cap space, including Bradbury maybe. Yeah, I would say the headline thing involving the Vikings today was Sam Darnold. He's gone. He signed with Seattle. That was kind of the expected place after they traded Geno Smith the other day. They traded to the Raiders. The Raiders have been talked about as maybe the place for Darnold, but then it became Seattle, and so he's going to Seattle. It was like 3 years, 100-some million, and like 50 guaranteed. I think it's a safe bet that those last 2 games that Darnold played cost him. I think it's definitive now that those two games he might have lost like about $50 million with those performances, because even if they still lose those 2 games, but Darnold plays well in them, I think he's getting a much bigger contract. At least in terms of the guaranteed money. I would guarantee he at least lost tens of millions, maybe maybe not another 50, but I mean it would have been a lot, because I mean that he got considerably less than Kirk Cousins got when he left last off season, and of course Darnold wasn't coming off an injury, so that's a those were a couple of costly games for him, man. Kind of an odd thing for Seattle to go spend big money on a quarterback like that, because they traded their number 1 receiver the other day. So I have no idea if Darnold will succeed in Seattle or not. I think it's 50-50. I think most people are going to be expecting to get away from KOC and probably take a step back again, but it's not impossible that he's simply tapped into something that talent that he always had, and he can be a good quarterback. So yeah, the Sam Darnold era officially over. So we're gonna have to figure something out with the quarterback position behind JJ McCarthy. And this is now definitive. It's JJ McCarthy's situation. He is the guy. And no, it's not going to be Aaron Rodgers, who is not signed yet. Like I saw, he's expected to go to either the Steelers or the Giants. So he'll be maybe a problem with one of them. But it won't be here. So Daniel Jones in the mix still to come back, or there's some other guys out there. Justin Fields signed with the Jets for pretty decent contract. Zach Wilson signed with somebody that he was kind of talked about as maybe could be the new reclamation project guy for us next year. I forget who he signed with, maybe Denver or something like that. There's still some guys out there, and I would certainly be fine with Daniel Jones coming back. And who else is not coming back? Nick Mullins. He's gone. He went to Jacksonville, presumably to be the backup for Trevor Lawrence. I mean, he is what he is, man. My Nick Mullins memory is always going to be that Detroit game at the Purple Palace a couple years ago that he basically single-handedly threw away. We were going to win the game, and he just threw the fucking thing away, and I'll never forgive him for that. So he's out of there. And we lost a couple other guys. Also, Johnny Munt went to Jacksonville. So that era is over. Munt had a couple moments here and there. I know he caught a couple touchdowns. Certainly think he's replaceable. Cam Bynum. The movie is over. He went to the Colts, got a big payday. I would not have paid. I'm completely okay with the Vikings not paying Cam Bynum the money that he got from the Colts. we all like him. I don't think he's worth the money that he got in Indy. But everyone's sad to see him go. But I think he's replaceable. I mean, I think Theo Jackson will probably kind of step into that spot. And then Patrick Jones, also very expected. He left. I think he signed with the Panthers. Panthers signed a bunch of guys today, but I think he went there for a decent deal. But he was definitely not coming back. I mean, they obviously, he had a big start to the season last year, and then kind of tailed off. And obviously, we got to get Dallas Turner more in the mix. So, that's day one, I guess. It's just day one, and of course, like clockwork, the second that the Vikings weren't spending $100 million on 10 different guys in the first hour of free agency, the fans were freaking out like, "Oh, why isn't Kwesi doing anything? Why aren't we doing anything?" It's like every year, these fans have to be this way. And then, of course, when we did sign guys, then it's, "Oh, why are we paying this guy that much money?" Well, you can't. If you got all the cap space, what do you want to do with it? You got to pay somebody. You're going to spend it on somebody. Damned if you do, damned if you don't. Like, people are going to just complain no matter what happens. I'm a little annoyed that not that we didn't. I wouldn't have given, like, a lot of these contracts that were coming out today. I wouldn't have given these kind of contracts to these guys. I'm a little annoyed that especially the Bears seem to be, loading up a little bit, but hey, you're gonna, you know what? It's going to be a competitive division next year, no matter what. You gotta worry about yourselves. Don't worry about what these other teams are doing. I mean, if JJ McCarthy is the real deal right away, I mean, you're gonna have a great chance to compete in the division. But a lot of that cap space is already gone. But I'm sure we got some moves left to go. We still got to get a guard or two. Hopefully, Jonathan Allen gets signed. I would think we're probably done with cornerbacks. I mean, we put a lot of money into the cornerback position, and then figure out QB2 and some other things, and I'm most interested to see what they do with Bradbury now. I would think you could probably trade him if that's what they want to do. I think so it's kind of a like a B day for the Vikings. I mean, I don't think anything was like earth-shattering or moved the needle that much, but many moves to come, and trusting Kwesi, and of course the guys, any moves made on defense, whether it's signing guys, keeping guys, not signing guys, Brian Flores is very much involved in that. So if Brian Flores, like Isaiah Rodgers, if Brian Flores thinks Isaiah Rodgers is a good guy to bring in here, then I trust him. So trust the process. Kwesi knows what he's doing. Maybe in the drafts he hasn't known what he's doing all the time, but I mean he's coming off a great free agency class last year where he kind of nailed everything. So let's see how he does in the days to come, and we'll get some more good players.